Yeah. It's the first. It's the first. It's the first episode. It's the first. Might be your last.
But I'm looking for my
First episode podcast. Welcome to First Episode Podcast, a cherry popping debrief of your next binge-worthy television series. I'm your host, Motown Maurice.
And I'm your co-host, Atara G.
And I'm your guest host, Raj Jawa.
Today we're cherry popping Severance.
Mark leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs.
Severance is a science fiction show, psychological thriller, a drama, and a mystery show.
Episode 1 is entitled Good News About Hell. So my immediate first impressions of this show is that it's weird. Very weird. Mysterious, as Raj read, and steady paced. I wouldn't say it's slow, but it's definitely steady paced.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. It's intrigue. I always enjoy things that feel like they're a view on the corporate kind of our lack of humanity in the corporate world. So I really enjoy shows that do this. So I really gravitated towards it as maybe boring or like mundane as the show is, especially in this first episode. I really gravitated towards things that feel like they're exposing and hopefully sending people messages. But yeah, people are learning that, you know, the kind of image you see and like, oh, stocks are up is kind of what's the price of that?
There's a lot of discomfort in this show with the imagery. The first scene to the use of their primary colors, how everything is monochromatic, that long walk through the startling white hallway. I had to endure that twice. Yeah, so this show is definitely trying to make you uncomfortable. I also, getting into themes, I'll kick that off. It was hard. I did not grasp a theme that popped out to me until we watched until the end of the episode, and I had a moment to think about it because I couldn't quite I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time.
I'm like, what is going on? What is this? Like, when they're going to tie all this together? And so when they finally did, I realized the theme that popped out for me was grief. And how do we deal with grief? And how do we escape grief? Do we choose to go through it and neutralize it, or do we choose to avoid it? And this guy is, he's clearly chosen to avoid it in a way that I find actually quite genius. Being a member of the corporate world, I would love to not have to take that home with me. And even though we say, oh, leave your work at work, as a human being, it's very hard to do.
I agree with you, but I also think maybe it's, at least in my view, it's almost the perfect situation for the corporation and not for the human. Because I think, while I think that separation is in some ways healthier, I think there's also maybe it's the way this show is going about it, the surgically separating the two means that you're not a full person and you can't necessarily build a relationship, whether it be friends or lovers, outside of this situation. Obviously, this character is stricken with grief, as we learn. But I think to react to that and say like the answer is to sever my personal life and my work life completely, I think is a mistake because you need that whole person to make those connections.
And that's where I believe he is avoiding his grief. Like, he's not dealing with his grief. He's not processing it. He's avoiding it. And to be honest, we know we have 24 hours between day and night. To him, to have that 8 hours where he's in the office and he doesn't have to remember that grief, that 8 hours probably makes that other 16 bearable.
Yes. And it's interesting that you say that too, because that's almost backwards. It should be the 16 hours we have not at work that is pleasurable. But instead, in this world, it is the 8 hours away from his personal life, which is unfortunately for his character sadder, that he would rather have that 8 hours of work be bliss because his 16 hours of personal time are misery.
I don't even think it's like the 8 hours at work. It's just 8 hours not in his personal life, because his personal life is just enmeshed with the grief of his loss. So he needs some sort of escape from his personal life, and that's the 8 hours at work.
Absolutely.
You know, because he doesn't remember anything.
Now, you said that who needs the personal life and the work life to come together?
I think we do. I think we as humans need it. I'm not saying like our jobs are this is not me saying like you need a job and blah blah blah. Like, I'm not trying to speak like a corporatist. I think what the show to me is trying to illustrate is he can't have a new normal life with this paradigm, with this severance idea, because he's two separate people. Like, yes, at the dinner party you hear it's like, no, I'm the person that goes to work and I'm the person at home. But in some ways you're not, because you can't remember anything you did at work. And that kind of speaks to maybe some people's problem with their relationship is you don't talk about work. You don't tell me anything about the problems. And maybe someone's like, I don't want to burden you. But it's like that lack of communication that causes the problem. It's like, okay, maybe you don't want to hear about the work stuff, but maybe you do. And the fact that you're not talking about it is the problem. So Mark's solution has been to just shut it all out. Work is work. Life is life. And I think what I'm trying to say, or what I think the show is trying to say, to me anyways, is you need that wholeness. Not that you need to work a stupid, soulless corporate job. Like, he could have his own business and be a whole person. But I think the point is you can't sever those two and expect to have a normal life.
You cannot compartmentalize your life. And people do that, you know, whether it's surgically or not. They're like, oh, I'm not going to talk about this outside of this area. But you mentioned something. You said this is an ideal situation for the corporation. It is.
It is.
Because if people are having problems in their personal life, like your parents are sick, your child is sick, your dog is sick, you know, something's happening in your life, as human beings, we can't be expected to just leave that at home and not bring it into the office. But with this procedure, it's perfect for the corporation because they get all day is a worker. And this person is only thinking about work, is only focused on their productivity. They're not thinking about what they've left at home, what they have to get to the next day at home, or what they have to get to when they get home that night from work.
Absolutely. And what I appreciate is these characters aren't portrayed as lobotomized. No, they still have all their personalities. You have one of his coworkers still making jokes to each other. They're not soulless people. They're just somehow severed from everything that makes them them at home to only the them that makes them them at work, which, yeah, exactly, is the corporate, I think, ideal for you to not be distracted by your life and just work on, assuming it's a corporation, making the corporation make more money.
Which is sick.
Of course, it is sick. I think that, and that's why I go back to you need the whole person to be whatever. Like, your job could be soulless, but I think the fact that you are able to talk about that, vent to that, whether it be a therapist or a lover or whatever it means to you, whoever's there for you in your life, I think you need that time. Yeah. It's not as simple as just like, bloop, it's been sucked out of my brain now, and now it's all good. And I think that's it. I think you touched on it. It's kind of his avoidance of coping.
For him, it's a perfect, in this situation, it's perfect for him. It's his choice. It's perfect for him. And it's perfect for the organization.
Absolutely.
You know, there's an interesting scene where, you know, we see him at a locker and he's changing his watch and he's changing his shoes and he's changing his badge. And then he gets in the elevator. And then at a certain point in the elevator, you see a cloud lift off of him, because prior to him coming into the building, he was just sobbing into the car, you know, sobbing while he was sitting in the car. And then he comes in, he gets in the elevator, he's going down, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a weight lifted from him and he's a completely different person, which is telling. It's like his personal life was lifted from him and he looks brighter and happier.
And it's interesting. I don't know if they intend, I mean, probably, but all the windows, while you can see light, you can't see anything. Mm-hmm. So you can't even see the outside world from this obviously basement level building. Because even when he goes into her office, she's on a lower level where it's just like stones and the sun is coming down. It's almost like, what's that famous allegory? The allegory of a cave. Mm-hmm. Like you see the things on the wall, but are those real people or are people real people around us? You know, it's like, I think that's kind of what they're going for, is like these people are kind of living their life in you think this is life, but this is not life. These are shadows on the wall.
Mm-hmm. And they don't even know they don't know when they've left or even if they've left. They're in a building that there's no distraction at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I noticed this show probably really played on people's the heightened enjoyment of liminal spaces, because that became very popular. It's like whether it be outside or inside, these offices that are either empty and they just look like if you were there, you'd be trapped. Like, where do I leave? How do I get out of here? Mm-hmm. I think this show really baked on that, because you got these, 4 desks sitting in the middle of a basically empty room.
Yeah.
Not a lot of doors, or if they're doors, they're kind of like hidden. They try to like make it look like not a door.
Like when she was in that conference room, you thought that behind some of those other walls would have been a window.
Right.
And it wasn't.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, I thought the themes, I mean, I agree with the theme. I almost think the title itself is the theme, more on the corporate end of like this being the ideal situation for the corporation, where you are severed from kind of a lot of what makes you you, even though, like I say, they're not lobotomized. They are, I guess, they are machines of the corporation while they're there, is my best example. Like they're not thinking about anything else that might be distracting them or bothering them. So the idea of severance itself became a theme for me, but also just like secrets and surveillance, all S words for some reason. But yeah, the idea of whether it be company secrets, like the whole reason they're doing this, seemingly, at least as far as we know so far, is to protect company secrets. You don't take any information out. And you don't bring any in. Maybe that's the corporate, like, oh, that's the what we put on the banner. But the secret is we want to actually separate you from your personal life. That's what they don't talk about. And surveillance is like always looking over your shoulder for a camera, or it's mostly cameras actually, is like being watched in every respect. We opened the show with her on the table, and obviously she's being watched from somewhere. And then you pull back to now you see Mark and Irv sitting in their own table, sitting in front of the computer, watching her while they're being watched behind themselves. Everybody's being watched. Yeah. Exactly. So I think surveillance and like keeping secrets are 2 big themes that stood out for me beyond the whole severance idea in general.
Yeah.
It's like, who's watching the watcher?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My theme is nice and simple. I noticed the monotony of the episode, the repetition, which is something that I appreciate. Not on a corporate level, though. It's not that type of severance is not for creatives. I think the studios want us to be producing in our sleep,
sure,
in our personal life, or even independent.
I was gonna say they'll just inject us into AI, and then the AI will make the film.
Exactly. Even as an independent producer, we're always producing. Just like you don't get a break. But I do like a repetitious schedule in terms of my sports and watching shows and my video games. My weeks are very similar. Basketball, tennis, pickleball, watching shows.
It's the routine. I think for outside of creativity, what was attractive to you? I like to think that I know you pretty well. So I would say just from watching this show, probably when you say repetition, what you really liked about this show was the routine, was the consistency, knowing that on this day between these hours, this is going to happen. I'm going to go to the same locker every day, take the same elevator to the same place. And this is what I can expect.
To some degree, I appreciate that level of repetition. I'm not like some people who got to take trips to New York and miss podcast recordings. But it's an interesting aspect, and their ability as you pointed out, very limited, very simplistic, confined structural settings, yet it's still very entertaining.
It's interesting. You said confined structural settings, and then you talked about 4 desks being in this huge room. So it's like they're confined in a very large space. They truly are imprisoned, but the space is so large, they don't know they're imprisoned.
Yeah.
They don't recognize their confinement.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know of any individuals or groups of people that live a life very similar to this spatial split? I would have to say off jump, church folks.
Oh, yeah.
Church folks, without a doubt. They go to club on Saturdays and then on Sundays.
They inquire on Sunday.
That's a complete severance.
That makes sense. Huh. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm sure. I just maybe don't think of anyone off the top of my head or like a clear example like that. But certainly, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the human existence is the dichotomies we create.
Well, I definitely used to live a life where there was workatara and non-workatara. I have really taken it upon myself to be more of my, another buzzword time, be more of my authentic self while in the office, censor myself less. Avoid code switching. Not that I had to code switch that much anyways, but.
I don't want to put you out there, Atara, but Atara is in a state where she is trying to exit her job. And I believe you would severance if you could.
Oh, absolutely. Sign me up. Sign me up. I have a really hard time not thinking about work when I am not at work. It's always... I will draft emails and forget to hit send. So I'm constantly replaying my day. Did you hit send? Did you not hit send? And I've logged on and gone into my outbox just to check to see, did I hit send? It could be, sometimes I've done it at 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes I've done it on a Saturday or Sunday. So it's work creeping into my personal life is a real problem. There's 2 reasons why I would sever. Because work creeps into my personal life. And then there, like many of us have this story, a certain level amount of grief or things that I've had to overcome in life that I don't want to think about anymore. You can go to all the therapy you want. You can do all the talk therapy. You can do all the critical behavior therapy, whatever you want. But those things will still, past traumas and whatever, still continue to bubble up and you have to deal with them, address them and then, hopefully move on. Sometimes I get tired of that. So it would be great to have a couple hours during the day where I don't have to, where those things don't bubble up.
Absolutely. Well, and you did mention something that I only thought about the corporate perspective, but the ability to leave work at work would be a great thing of the severance on the opposite side. Kind of the oh yeah, it works for workers too, I guess. It's actually working for us, but workers you get some benefit, a little bit.
Yeah. I know over time, Raj, you've shared some challenges you've had with your family business. So is there a point of time or currently where you would severance if you had the choice?
I don't think so, because I was thinking about this just a moment ago, and I don't think you can sever me. I think you'd sever it and it'd just be a soulless thing there, because I don't think I have much separate. I mean, obviously there's examples where I have to not be fully myself, but I'm so uncomfortable and kind of avoidant of those situations, where I can be, that I kind of don't, I just want to be me. And I realize a lot of that is impractical, like given like my more socialist views or more other things like this. I obviously butt up against some of the mentalities that aren't there yet, aren't feeling in those ways yet towards capitalism or whatever, that I do feel like I do have to sever from the idealistic perspective I want. For instance, maybe going into other businesses that I maybe didn't think about before, like, oh, maybe I'll own a laundromat or own a self-storage, not because I want to, because, I love these businesses, but because we live in such a time where you have to just figure out your way to make it through the system we have rather than be an idealist. So to tie it back to Severance, I just don't know if I could. I think the me that would be severed would just have nothing to him. It would be a skin or whatever.
Well, I definitely agree. If I severed myself, the Tara at work would be just nothing, but it would be, it's an interesting way to put it, because I just said I wanted to be severed so that I could have a break from some of the things that I have to deal with in my personal life. But but then now I'm saying that a Tara at work would be nothing. Am I really getting a break?
It's an interesting, and absolutely. I think there's definitely something to the thought of it for sure. I still lean towards we need both sides of ourselves. I think the part that becomes appealing in the severance idea is because so many of us are working jobs that we don't control. We're not the boss. We're not the CEO. We're not making the gains of our labor. So the fact that we put in more effort doesn't pay off for us. We're not getting a bigger paycheck. We're not getting a bonus. We're not getting anything. So what's the point of doing it? I might as well sever from this because I can't make this any better. I think the fact that I've always kind of been in a family business, it's completely different because I kind of have full control in some ways of like, if I put in this effort, I can potentially make more money. I can do this. I have control of the business in a way where, yes, I'm thinking about it all the time, and maybe severance would be appealing to not, but thinking about it all the time also directly benefits me in a way that it doesn't benefit the average worker.
Yeah, I think severance is a very individual application, because for the individual, it could be the right choice for the individual. And then because the individual is making this choice for them, and also benefits it's always the right choice for the company.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. It's always the right choice for the company. But depending on the individual's position, it may be the right choice for them.
Agree. I agree.
I will say the company I work for, is not a company where they would want severed employees. But at the same time, you're spending 8 hours of a day at this company, Monday through Friday. It leaves very little time. Like, I sometimes feel like the only time I have outside of work is just to prepare to go back to work.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's very
Even
typical,
though I'm spending less amount of time, like 16 hours outside of work, that 8 hours, because of when it's occurring, is pretty much the bulk of my time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I would particularly want a severance from. There are some events that I wish that didn't happen in my life, of course, but it directly influences my art.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't severance. But if I had to pick something, I would definitely have to severance myself from the consequences of a workplace Atara that affects her personal life, which directly affects me.
Oh, wow. I'm not even going to touch that.
Entertainment potential.
Definitely a 10 out of 10.
Wow. Well, we're not rating in tens. We're talking about cherries. But before you get to the cherries, just entertainment potential.
I like how absolutely bleeping weird this is. It's so bizarre. Raj, what's the main character's name?
Mark, I believe. Yeah.
What's his actor's name?
Oh, Adam Scott.
Yeah, I really like him.
Yeah. I've
always found him to be a weirdo in whatever role he plays.
Yet you were criticizing his lips or something like that.
Oh, I was just saying,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he looked a little weird here. And I think it's just because he's aged. It's terrible. But I do really enjoy everything he's been in. I enjoy his acting style. So the casting is really good. I'm a big fan of Patricia Arquette as well. I really like the style of the show, even though I feel like it's designed to make us uncomfortable. So yeah, I like the style. I'm interested with the storyline. It's interesting that they settled on grief is why he chose Severance.
The show writers.
Yeah, the show writers. I'm interested to see where this goes because I think there has to be something much bigger going on here, especially with how the show ended. But I'm wondering if at some point he's going to find out, because he's obviously curious. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, that person showed up and he's trying to find out. If he were really committed to the Severance long term, I don't think he would go do any of the investigation he's done.
Has he done any investigation yet, though?
Didn't he go somewhere?
He went home.
He went home. He didn't go to the address?
Yeah, that's when his boss talked to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I do think they're setting it up. I don't think he's not going to investigate because I think that's the whole point of the show.
Yeah, I think he's going to investigate. It's interesting to see I'm interested to see his character, how he develops. Because right now, he's clearly enmeshed in his grief.
Yeah. I'm interested partly for myself. I'm interested partly to embark on the journey with Atara. But then another part of me... it's okay if I don't watch it. I think the slow start or the steady start, I spent so much time like wondering where are we going with this? Mm-hmm. It was fulfilling a little bit at the end. Like, okay, there is something there.
Yeah.
I hope that pace, it doesn't maintain that pace moving forward.
Yeah.
That's a concern. I hope that the intrigue and the mystique continues to mount as we go. But if it's very similar, I'm going to be like kind of like indifferent.
I think it's going to pick up pace just because of the way they ended. You cannot end it like that and then go into a second episode that's that slow.
Yeah, but when we're talking about these office settings and just, you know, a table, it's like you wonder like where are they going with this? Yeah.
I agree with you, but I also think that maybe I agree with Atara on that it probably will pick up because there is nothing else to the show. Their work is so mundane and nothing that it's not like, well, we need to get this report done by weekend. It's like, no, none of that's going to happen. They're not going to make a plot line out of their work as much as them. I think the plot lines are all going to be be around this mystery and what's going on. And the question of what this company is even doing, I believe is a question.
It's not a company that's doing anything. They're putting numbers in a bucket on a screen all day. So I think what is really happening out in the real world. It's not even happening in that building. I think what's happening has to do with the individuals. Like something about these characters is where the truth lies, not with the work that they're doing while they're at Severance.
For sure. And it's interesting that last scene also maybe pitches that they all live in that complex. Like maybe this is like a company town type mentality where all the workers live in the same place. You pay the company your rent and whatever, like they used to back in the railroad days and things like that.
And they're able to set that up with the Severance because they don't remember they all work together.
Right.
Yeah.
They just think it's their neighbor.
So you're basically saying this has high entertainment value for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I like I say, I love this type of corporate like mystery corporate, like, fuck you corporate type show, which is what I see it as. I hope they follow through on that because there's definitely potential to be like, oh, it's just a stupid thing. It's just a dumb thing. Yeah. So I'm invested in this mystery, this what's going on, finding out if he can actually cope with his grief in a more healthy way. I mean, I guess not because this is a permanent thing, but maybe not. Maybe they'll be like, oh, we found a way to not make it permanent.
Well, we know from this first episode it's not permanent.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we do. Yeah. We do. You're right. He meets Petey and we know that it's not permanent. Yeah. You are 100% right. Yeah, you're right. So
if you don't mind me asking, Raj, have you had a corporate job before?
I worked as an intern for 1 month. So yes.
So no.
And no. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah. No, I actually see that's why I go back to this whole severance idea is when I quit that job, I sent an email and it wasn't even like anyone did anything bad to me or whatever. I sat in a meeting we were developing an app or a program on a browser. And I don't even remember the context of the meeting, but I remember, I think soon after that time, that moment or the next day or whatever, I wrote an email to everyone I had the email of, which was like 5 people and the boss. And I'm like, I quit. You all should go smoke some weed and like learn about like everything's not fucking about this like whole like blah blah blah, we gotta get this out by April and blah blah blah. It's like I hated it. I hate that's why I can't. I've never had a real job, so I can't. I mean a real job, but I've never had a job where I interviewed outside. So I'm very.
No wonder you guys are best friends.
I'm very outside of the corporate. Like everything has to be a certain way.
You really wrote an email saying?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do you regret writing that?
No, because I think it's true. I think there is such a. I mean, I don't know how many years ago, but I was younger, so I was stupider for sure. But I don't think it's incorrect. I do think, not that everyone should start smoking weed, but that there is a high strung, like, lack of human feeling to all this, and I just don't like it. I get making money, I get we all need to survive, but I will never ever let go of the human element, that we need to be humans. And it's not just about sitting in a boardroom and yelling at each other, and or even just talking loudly at each other, or deadlines or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying don't be productive. Not at all what I'm saying. I like being productive too. But when it's stressful, when it's high strung, it doesn't need to be. My thought is it doesn't need to be that way. You can get all your work done in a reasonable timeline. Just focus on it. Just do it. And that's it. You don't need to make this high strung, crazy environment. But that's my belief.
That's my belief too. It's difficult because I work in that environment where everything is deadlines and, performance reviews and feedback and calibrations and, all the other buzzwords, optics and all that kind of stuff. And it's challenging because I'm not that person, but I've had to become that person.
Of course. It's an adaptation. It's an adaptation.
Yeah, it's an adaptation. And sometimes I wonder, who am I? I'm not a morning person, but I am a morning person because I have to get up every morning and be somewhere at a certain amount of time. I will say this about the two of you. I really respect that you decided early on that the 9-to-5 hustle was something you didn't want to be a part of, and that you have, because when you make that decision, there's some sacrifices that come along with that. And both of you have made those sacrifices to keep yourself outside of that 9-to-5 grind. And I can definitely say I could see the results of that in your personalities and your energies. Because, and I can just look at your personalities and your energies and look at my own and just, I'm tense a lot of the time, anxious a lot of the time. Maybe part of that is me doing a better job of learning how to detach from the 9-to-5. It's very difficult to do.
Well, I was going to say, it kind of ties back to what we were talking about universities and with Gen V is, they're not creating individuals. They're thinking people that are built to go out in the world and succeed. They're training worker bees. They're training people to be drones, replaceable, whatever. In fact, there was something I watched about the individualizing of labor. So when you know how to make all the parts of a car, you're invaluable. But if you only know how to make the tires, you're useless without the rest of the team. And the more they say, like, you focus on the tires and you focus on the engine and whatever. So all those people individually can't do anything themselves. They need the corporation to organize their labor to do it. And that's not me saying, oh, the corporation is great. I'm saying the corporation is exploiting these people by using their specified labor to basically keep them under control. So I think when you do embrace the system, it just becomes the part of the paradigm. The reason we don't have, like, people think universities are beacons of free thought and whatever. And it's like, maybe, but the point is it's creating people that are loyal to the system.
Well, just look, we've had these protests at universities around the country, which is an inkling of free thought. of them trying to express their free thought, and they got beat down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Immediately.
Black Lives Matter protests before that.
Exactly. What do you think they're building all these cop cities across the country for? We're headed in a direction where there will be no free thought.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go, Apple TV. You're about to spark a revolution with Severance.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
You know, since I watched Severance, I've really been thinking about myself in the workplace. And I have this goal of leaving the workplace by 55. I don't know if I'm going to get to it, but I hope I do, because I want to have some of myself left to do things in the world. I don't want to work until I'm 65 or 70 and then just not. The only thing I can do is come home and sit on the couch and ice my knees, you know. But you said when you embrace the system, and when I first got out of college and I want to get a job, I was like gung-ho to embrace the system. But then as you go, you get your job, you graduate from college, you get your job, you work towards this American dream, and you realize it was all a lie. But by then, you're neck deep in the system and you can't get out.
Student loans, whatever else you
got.
Loans,
yeah. Like I think about if I left my job today, the first thing that comes up to me is, wow, who's going to pay that for my 5-year colonoscopy? Who's going to pay for my annual mammogram? Like I've seen what those things cost without insurance. Like Absolutely. There's all these fears that I have or all these things that I need to survive that are tied to my employment, or in my mind are tied to my employment.
Absolutely.
And so when I think about leaving a job without having another job lined up, or leaving a job without having millions of dollars in the bank, there's a lot of fear that comes with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's that what I was talking about similarly about like owning a storage thing or owning a laundromat. It's about, since I don't have a job that gives me healthcare, I have to find that money myself to sustain me not only right now where I am healthy, but much later when I may not be healthy, unfortunately. So that's a fear. It's like, yes, you have a job that has you healthcare, but maybe you get laid off. Now you don't have healthcare. That's the unfortunate, again, of the capitalist, the lobbying that has happened in this country, where we don't have social services that protect us. We kind of are all on our own to fund our own retirement, fund our own healthcare, fund whatever we got. Is we're on our own. We're not.
And that's where they want us. They want us thinking as individuals, because as individuals we're powerless
and competitive.
But as a group, people, we could really change things as a group. You know, like think about the Borg. They're really a force to reckon with. No one probably gets
maybe
that
not
reference.
The best example, but yeah.
I'm more interested in the show now after hearing you guys talk. I really am. And I think this is an episode that I'm going to want to personally go back to, because you guys shared some really, really good perspectives.
Well,
here.
This show, I think, is the kind of show you would want to watch multiple times, because I could see myself watching the first episode.
Again.
I think it's also deceptive in its simplicity, because out of the 3 shows we've done, it seems like it's the least to it. And I actually wrote the least notes, but I think there's a lot more going on than one, maybe even the first episode will reveal. But in general, even that first episode, there's a lot that's just not being said that you have to like maybe even watch multiple times to pick up on.
There's a lot of hype behind this show. According to imore.com, it's Apple TV Plus's most popular show. They're really excited. There is a season 2, and it would have released a while ago, but the strike delayed the production. But it's potentially coming out anytime this year, maybe this summer.
I will say my cousin has Apple TV, and when she was staying with me, she had it loaded on the smart TV. So there are a couple other sci-fi shows that I got to watch on Apple, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Apple. But I am a science fiction fan, and they are really coming out with some great stories, great original science fiction content.
Apple's a quiet giant in the streaming space, but I think they're slowly but surely coming out with some cool stuff that is getting more attention. People are already invested in Netflix and Amazon, so Apple's like, oh, here's another one, and I gotta get an Apple device too. So maybe that's why they're a little quiet, but they got good stuff.
I had to give up on Netflix because they put out one show, they do one season and then they cancel it.
Yeah.
It's like such a abusive relationship.
Is it only Netflix though, or are they all known for that now? Like Amazon, are they known for letting shows go?
Most Netflix is more popular about
that.
They're
the highest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm giving Severance 3.5 cherries. But based off the conversations that we've had amongst each other, I wouldn't be surprised that those cherries increase over time. That's just for the first episode. But I do believe that the season is going to get stronger, as you both predicted.
Yeah, I do believe the season's going to get stronger. This is definitely one I'm going to watch. In terms of the cherries, I want to give it a 4, but this first episode has me at a 3 just because it was so slow and some other reasons I can't quite articulate.
It was a little frustrating at first because we're just like, what's happening? It was fulfilling by the time we got to the end, but initially it was a little
If I divided it up, I would say the first half was a 3 and the second half was a 4.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
But in terms of my hope for the future, it's a 5.
Yeah, it's high. It's high for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I would probably also give it maybe a 4.5, but I agree with your guys' thoughts on the weaknesses of this episode. I almost feel like maybe this was a movie and then they're like, let's turn it into a TV show, because this feels very much like a first 30 minutes, first 20 minutes of a movie where like introducing the character. This is their daily routine. This is kind of the thing that's going on. Oh, here's the mystery coming in slowly. Like that's what it felt. This episode really felt like the first few minutes of a movie rather than a full TV show, where some of the other TV shows we talked about had their like beginning, middle, and ends, where this kind of just felt like a beginning.
Yeah. Absolutely, because the first episode of Gen V, we saw the whole hero's journey happen.
Absolutely.
For Marie.
Yeah.
She went from the beginning to the end of the hero's journey in that first episode.
Yes.
And I think maybe if we were to examine, we probably give, or we're attracted to shows that have their inciting incident early on. Those are appealing. This show, did it even have any inciting incident?
It didn't give us anything until we found out the neighbor was his boss.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to say because, I mean, is the woman on the table an inciting incident? No, because we don't know what's going on. Is it,
Petey?
Is it Petey? Yeah.
No, because we know he left, and now we know. Like they told us everything about him already.
It is. It's kind of breaking some of the thoughts we have for a way TV show maybe is formulated. Yeah. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think maybe my eyes started to open a little bit once Helly saw the videotape of herself.
That could have been, sure. That
was
definitely
somewhat of an indirect inciting incident.
Starting to give us at least a little more of the story. Because before that point, we're really at a loss for everything. Yeah. We don't really know much except these people are weird and they live in a liminal space, basically.
Yeah. But as you said, Raj, it's something about the simplicity is what makes it interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe because things right now in the world are so difficult, we just need something simple.
Maybe. I could see that for sure.
You just want to walk down a long white hallway forever and not think about anything else.
Well, going to like picking up themes, it does certainly, I think, make things easier when there's not a lot of complicated other stories going on. Like, oh, here's an inner office romance as well. It's like, no. We're just about the corporate and the mystery.
Exactly.
It's nothing to do with
the numbers and the buttons.
This is not Pam and Jim, all right?
Yeah.
We won't talk about it, but that conversation, the dinner conversation that they had, and there was that annoying guy.
Oh my friend who blah, 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 blah.
I feel like that should have been played by Matt Berry, the guy from What We Do in Shadows, the big guy.
Yeah.
I think that would have been great.
Oh my God.
But
he did good. The actor that did it did well too. But
definitely,
that's what they wanted him to do. He nailed it.
Yeah. Severance released on Friday, February 18th. 2022. 1 season available and 9 episodes.
The average episode duration is 48 minutes. It is on Apple TV Plus, and the IMDb rating is 8.7.
As I stated earlier, season 2 wrapped, and at any time now, they could be announcing season 2, so be on the lookout. As I browse through the other episodes, they're right in the 40 range, which is really, really good. Like the first episode is a little longer, but then it starts to drop. So you don't even have to watch for a full hour,
My favorite length of a show these days is 17 minutes.
Really? Uh-huh. Well, yeah, because you're binge watching Law and Order. Those are our thoughts on Severance.
Thank you for trusting us.
We are honored to be your first.
For information about this podcast and more, please visit MotownMaurice.com.